Slide us in. Okay, let me fix this so everyone can see you as well.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here.
Let's record it, and then we'll watch it later.
Welcome. My name is Tamara Johnston. I am a board member of the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. And many members in this, almost everybody in the room here is either a member of the Fire Safe Council or otherwise involved with fire policy and mitigation issues in the county. This candidate forum, as you all know, but I'm just going to reiterate it, is focused exclusively on wildfire prevention, mitigation, and insurance issues. And we are fortunate to have candidates here today that are representing a wide range of offices, including congressional, state, county, and insurance commissioner races. So I think we have 11 people here today. So thank you all so much for taking time out of your afternoon to be here and talk about these really important issues. So I just want to reiterate that this is an informed audience with significant on the ground experience with fire. So we will be having an exchange, I think, between people who are running for office and people who are very knowledgeable about this community's fire issues. The forum today is not about being a traditional political debate. It's to create a focused and productive exchange between candidates and the people working directly on these issues in our communities. So I'm hoping that we will approach that in the spirit that it's really about the audience learning what you are proposing and thinking about in terms of fire, and for our candidates to learn what's important to our community. So each candidate will begin with 2 minutes for opening remarks. The remarks I've talked to you all individually, but I'm just reiterating this. The remarks must relate specifically to wildfire prevention, mitigation, resilience, or insurance issues. Because we have a full program and want to maintain a focused discussion, I will interrupt and redirect if comments move into unrelated campaign topics. And then following the opening remarks, audience members will have the opportunity to submit written questions on index cards, or, which I have over here, and Jessica probably can help me pass around. Or you can also ask them in person. But if you don't feel comfortable, you can write them on a card and I'll read it for you. Some people aren't comfortable. I think everyone here is probably comfortable. We do it all the time. But if you're not comfortable, you can put it on an index card. You can ask a question and direct it to a particular type of candidate. If you're directing it to, say, a congressional, it's a federal focused question, then each person who's running for a federal office will have the opportunity to answer. If it's a more general question, I will direct it to a particular type of category. So I just want to be clear that for example, if one supervisor candidate gets to answer a question, then all supervisor candidates will get to answer the question. Same with federal candidates, all federal candidates will get to answer, or same with all state candidates will get to answer. I think we only have one insurance commissioner candidate here today. So if it's an insurance commissioner directed question, we'll have one person answer. This is the first time we're doing it like this. I don't know if any of you have ever even attended a candidate forum like this. It's a little bit weird having, I think, all different types of candidates. So we're going to play it by ear, and my apologies in advance if it doesn't work perfectly, but we will do our best to make sure everybody has equal time. And again, if the audience asks questions that are veering off topic, I will redirect and cut you off. So, and you all know I can do that. And we ask that you keep your remarks concise, respectful, and focused on the issues at hand. So thank you all for participating, and thank you to everyone here who continues to do the difficult work of helping to protect our communities. So let's get started. Let's start at the end with Ralph Moby with your opening remarks. You have to turn here. Let me see how to turn on.
right? That's where you go in. Yeah.
My time starts now, right?
Jessica. Will you start the time, Jessica?
Let's start, yeah. Where did my 2 minutes? Yeah. And go.
Thank you, Jessica. And thank you for organizing this particular forum. My name is Ralph Nawabi. I am the candidate running for Congress in California Congressional District 7. I'm a local attorney here in Sacramento. And if I'm elected as Congress, I will actually work across the aisle to ensure push policies that will help in fire prevention, mitigation, and actually strengthen fire insurance. So for me, any policy or any bill that encourages, make sure that insurance is strengthened, I will be for that kind of bills. But of course, removing providers that are greedy. So if there are providers that are greedy and actually not meeting the interest, the full interest of the fire workers, that is something that I will strongly be behind. And then, of course, when it comes to fire prevention, the best type of fire is a fire that actually didn't start. So I will push for policies that encourage more education among the people, because most of the fires that happen are usually man-made. You know, it's caused by humans. So when people get more information as far as how to maybe extinguish fires in a campfire after using one, you know, ensuring that all the fires are actually put out completely before the person leaves the place, then that kind of information, if it's very much accessible to all the residents, I think that will go a long way in helping reduce fire situations. Also, another thing that I would want to work on would be readiness for the firefighters. So policies and bills that encourage, that ensure that the firefighters have all the equipment that they need to fight any fire.
I'd
To be promoted. And I can be able to work across the aisle to ensure that that's done. But there has to be readiness as far as okay.
Just so the candidates know, when you are at your 30-second mark, I will put my hand up. I know you have to look over here. Sorry, I can't move in front of you. It's okay. I didn't tell you ahead of time, but now you know. Thank you. There you go. I can't because my computer. They have so bad. It's more.
Sorry, I want to reshuffle the candidates, all the federal people are standing together. Yeah, and your state, right? So can I switch Heidi and or just put you guys down either way? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize. You all get along, it's good. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so next we have Chris Bennett, who's running in CD. Go ahead, Chris. Oh, wait.
That's good.
Awesome. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Bennett, and I'm a disabled Army veteran, West Point Berkeley grad, running for Congress in California's 3rd District. We don't take corporate money, which means that we can actually focus on supporting the residents and constituents. When it comes to wildfire readiness, prevention, mitigation, insurance, our campaign platform is really about doing 2 different things. One is addressing the immediate problems that people are facing right now. The other is actually trying to address the systemic issues that are causing them. So we know that the biggest driver of increased rate of floods and wildfires is climate change. And right now, the biggest polluters, institutional polluters like the United States military and of course the fossil fuel companies, they are sort of externalizing those costs onto the people least responsible, rural communities in the global south. And then because of the way that our funding structure is built, we then have to go and ask them for federal grant money to do things that are going to affect all of us. You know, we understand that wildfires are kind of like diseases, they don't care about borders. So we need to make sure that we're actually addressing those root causes. Some things that we support, one is actually fighting for public utilities, because We know that companies like PG&E are trying to put a bunch of lithium-ion battery storage banks out in a lot of these places because they don't want solar panels to go directly to the grid. And when our firefighters have to respond to those, they may not know that there are severe toxic fumes coming out of there. So we also want to have like a database of those lithium-ion battery stations. We also, one of the biggest things is we want to have a public flood and fire insurance program that's actually paid for by the biggest polluters. Because that will, one, protect people's homes and families here. It'll also address the cause of climate change. We support full federal funding for our fire departments instead of this grant-based rat scramble where we're all trying to fight for the exact same pot of resources, because everyone benefits when all of our firefighters can actually get the wages that they need so that they don't have to keep getting trained in these rural areas and then moving out to the cities. Lastly, federal jobs guarantee in climate and wildfire mitigation readiness, because there's not enough jobs to go around and this work has to get done. So once again, I'm Chris Bennett, BennettFirstCA.com, and I look forward to your questions.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christine Bish. I'm a candidate for Congress, also in California's 3rd Congressional District. Now, I'm a mother and a grandmother, a small business owner, also an investigator. I have a lot of time working with insurance companies doing subrogation, which is recovering the lost money from the people who caused the loss to those insurance companies. I'm also a real estate agent, and I'm the only one of the candidates that has a footprint not only in Sacramento, but I have lived and worked in all corners of the 3rd Congressional District. Now, we're here to talk about wildfires and everything that goes with it. So at the back of the table, you'll see this flyer. And what it is, it's about a bill that I've already written, and it's called the Wildfire Act. And what this is to put us into, or give us the option of national fire insurance. We already have national flood insurance when insurance companies started pulling out of markets. So it was an easy switch to go into a national fire policy, but it's more than just insurance that would give us more options than Fair Plan. But what it also does is it puts together a program to help with home hardening. It helps with organizing our different agencies, whether it's FEMA, CAL FIRE, state and local firefighters, helps protect our watershed. So there is a big board at the back for the Wildfire Act, and then these individuals, when you get inside, it's got the full plan, and it works, it walks you through the program, what it's going to cover. Now, this is the framework. The people in this room, I appreciate you reading through this pamphlet and asking me the hard questions, because that's how we're going to come up with the solutions. I don't know everything, but together we can fix this problem.
You ready for me?
Yes.
Okay. But you're gonna get a whole bunch of stuff at once. My name is Heidi Hall. I'm also running in Congressional District 3. Actually, I'm the only one who got in this race last year and have stayed in this race after Prop 50. I'm also the only candidate here who lives in the WUI. I'm from Nevada County. I'm on the Fair Plan. It's been tripled in the last 3 years. In Nevada County, we have 125 Firewise communities. As a Nevada County supervisor there in my 3rd term, I have worked on bringing millions of dollars into our community to do fire mitigation, defensible space work, a landscape scale clearing around the cities. We've instituted a home hardening program that we provide money. We provided money for fire safe councils, for fire safe clearing. We've got an evacuation plan. I know this stuff inside and out. I live it. My husband and I just spent $9,000 doing some more fire safe clearing around our own home. As a supervisor, I've been on the state association where I worked with counties up and down the state of California and to come up with some solutions after talking to experts. I've testified in Sacramento on bills on wildfire insurance, and I've been invited to testify in the Senate Banking Committee in Washington, D.C. I've worked with Senator Schiff, Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren on bills that we can implement to deal with this problem. I really look forward to digging in deeper on these topics because I know about them. We must have a federal backstop. It's not an insurance, it's a backstop like the flood insurance plan. That's my 30 seconds. Okay. And on the state level, where insurance companies are regulated on the state level, not at the federal level, and the reinsurance companies that are backstops right now are completely unregulated. and completely taking advantage of you. And the FAIR plan is going to go bankrupt at some point if we don't work on it. I've worked with Commissioner Lara to try to figure out some solutions there as well. But this is one of the top issues for our area, and I'd love to work on this at the congressional level. Thank you.
Okay, so those were our four federal candidates, just to keep them in mind. And now we're moving to our state candidates. So we've got Alexandra Duarte, who's running in California Senate District 4.
I'm Alexandra Duarte. I'm running for State Senate District 4. I'm a farmer. I farm up in Georgetown Divide since 1999. We bought it as a forest, did a timber conversion plan under Gray Davis, and now we farm over 200 acres of vineyard. And we live with the risk of fire every year. There is not a time when you don't have your diesel truck half full of diesel so you can get out. The trailers parked the right way so that you can load the animals and get them out. We've lost 2 years of crop. And I understand that as a farmer, that's not everybody's, personal worry. But that is income for the county, which is what pays for our rural community services. We are the rural communities are at a disadvantage with the rest of the communities in California for rural services. We work with the local fire department. They know where our reservoir is. We leave our gates open when there's a fire. We've either been evacuated or we've had to have people that work for us move into the house there because they've been evacuated to their homes. I live this. We are on California Fair Plan, and I hope that I get reinstated this year because it's costing me a fortune. I don't have any more money than I have in the last 10 years, and it's getting extraordinarily difficult to stay in business in the mountains and to be up here. I can work with the state, federal, and local governments. I am endorsed by Congressman McClintock, Fong, and Ogunolty, who will be our congressman for the next few years in DC. That means I can work with the agencies. My husband, Congressman John Duarte, was on natural resources. He has been nominated by Hilton to be his Secretary of Natural Resources if he is elected governor. Natural resources, the fire breaks, the forest thinning, and the making sure that we have less paperwork to get projects implemented is extraordinarily important to me. This district matters to the entire economy of the state. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Keith Davis, who's running for Insurance Commissioner.
Well, hello, everybody. Again, my name is Keith Davis. I am running for Insurance Commissioner. And I'm actually based out of Riverside in San Diego. So I got on a plane and I got here just to be with you all to share my ideas and the things that we need to do to make things much more safer for you guys here. One of the things that I'm really excited about, or I feel really good about, is that out of all the candidates that are running for Insurance Commissioner, I'm one of the only ones that's actually an insurance agent. So that means that I've sat with people who have lost their homes in fire. I've actually wrote California Fair Plan policies. I wrote these home policies and I've seen it firsthand. So I'm not looking at this entire situation from the outside in. I'm in it and I know specifically what needs to be done and how to fix it. And one of the biggest frustrations that I'm seeing is that you guys are doing the work. You guys are making your homes fire safe. The Fire Council is doing an incredible work. And what we're not seeing is anything significant from the insurance companies. There's almost no reward that we're having from doing these things, and that needs to change. And so that's going to be one of the things that I want to go in and do, and to make sure that if you're doing the work, if you're making your home more safer, then you need to be rewarded for it. California Fair Plan, I'm sure maybe 50% of us in here are on the California Fair Plan. They haven't been the greatest, but they've stepped in when insurance companies have stepped away. And so if that's going to be the case, and we're going to have to deal with the California Fair Plan, I think that we need to restructure it. I think we need to beef it up. I think we need to add some more coverages to it. And I think that we need to figure out a way to make it a more efficient policy if that's going to be our only options. But we have to sit down with the insurance companies. We have to make sure that we're bringing them back so that way you guys have more options and you don't have to do the California Fair Plan. But I do want to, if we're going to have it, let's beef it up. My name is Keith Davis and I am running for Insurance Commissioner.
Okay, next we have Neva Parker, who is running in Assembly District 5.
Hi, I'm Neva Parker and I'm running for Assembly District 5, which is portions of Placer and El Dorado counties. Now, it's a mix of suburban area and rural, but the county itself or the district itself is very rural. How I see this, you have several different candidates here from different parts of the process. And as I see the issue that everybody's having, it tends to be a more holistic, sort of like, like complex problem. And so from the state perspective, I see what an assembly member can do is work on the FAIR Plan, make certain it's more transparent, make certain that the claims process is smoother, and also that it opens up more, more coverage. The other portion that I see is that, just as the insurance commissioner and everybody else has said, really, is that there's a lot of effort put in by folks to harden their homes, lots of mitigation efforts. While you're shouldering the cost of that, you aren't receiving the benefit of that. And so I think, one, you should also, there should be some sort of financial support for anybody who can't afford it in terms of hardening their home. There should also be, if you do, there should be some insurance discounts, and you should also have the expectation that you maintain your insurance. And I think overall, there's just a balanced approach where we make certain that folks, the insurance is affordable, and that we maintain, there's consumer protections, and that also there is, get close. Consumer protections, and then also, we have a viable insurance market here. So that's who I am. That's where I see the process in terms of being a state assembly member. My name is Neva Parker, and thank you very much for me being here. I appreciate it.
Okay, next we have Jan Brandon, who is running for California Senate District 4.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. First off, thanks to the American Legion Post 119 Fire Safe Council for being able to pull this together. This is huge. We need more opportunities like this. I am not going to cover all my notes because I have too many ideas, too many things I want to work on with this. So a little bit about me. My name is Jaron Brandon. I am born and raised local, not to this area, but to Tuolumne County. I grew up with my mom in a mobile home park. I like to say I'm a proud but grumpy Democrat. I'm a county supervisor. I'm the only candidate in this race that's actually had to handle these issues, not just once, but twice. And not only in a blue area, but in an area actually Republicans outnumber Democrats 2-1. They put me back in office because they've been satisfied with the work, particularly on fire services. A little bit about my experience. I draw my own trees, harden my own home, rent 4 rooms to afford my fire insurance. I've been at the EOCs when disaster has struck. I've overseen the rebuilding of a town that has been taken by fire. I've been evacuated, and we are dealing with huge challenges. 100 years of fuel buildup, a changing climate, a loss of industry, catastrophic events. My county is 70% on the FAIR Plan. It is #1 in the state. Our mega fire was the Rim Fire in 2013. It was the #2 fire in the state of California. It's not even top 15 anymore. And so when we talk about fire, I bring more experience than most candidates do to this race. And I think it's really important because who we elect to Sacramento isn't just a party. It is who can bring in resources and meaningful policy change. So covering some of those topics in 30 seconds for my brochure there. On forest management, more support for biomass, money to collaboratives, and streamlining environmental rules that often hold up projects. Funding for home hardening, including grants, tax deductions, the PACE program for equity-backed loans to help us with our existing communities. Making sure for insurance, which we are getting screwed by, we're banning AI as the primary way to cancel policies. We're getting everybody off the FAIR Plan. We are radically and fundamentally changing it. I will ask to lead the Senate committee on it. And lastly, standing by our firefighters for their mental health. Thank you.
Okay, and next we're moving to our county level supervisors. We have 3 supervisors running in District 4. I did invite Brooke Lane, who's running in District 5, but she is running unopposed, but I asked her, just so everyone knows, I did ask her to be here, but she had a conflict and she wanted to send her regrets, but she would have been here if she could. Okay, so we'll start with Robert Dietz.
Hi, my name is Robert Dietz, running for District 4. The background is I moved to the county in property in 1988. In doing that, what caused me to do that was coming up in the decade of the 80s up on my Jeep. Coming up here and going on the Rubicon Trail, Hellhole, spent a lot of time up in the El Dorado National Forest, and decided to move up here. So I've been in the county since that time. Whenever I look at a problem, I like to look at what was it like before, what happened, and what do we have now. Now I've been up here, I've spent time up in the forest. I was here and I was active in the 90s. In the 90s, we didn't have any million-acre fires. We didn't have whole cities that were burned down in the state. We actually had, for the Fire Safe Council, that was invented here in El Dorado County with a supervisor, Ray Nutt, and sat down with Cal Fire, went to the governor, created the very first Fire Safe Council project, which is out off of Slack Park. So we're actually moving in a pretty good direction. Unfortunately, simultaneously in the 90s were all those lawsuits to shut down the logging going on in the 90s. So I saw this when I used to sit at my home on Lotus Road or be in my Jeep up on Wilbur Springs Road. I saw all those trucks coming down with the logs and they were clearing. And I saw that personally. And then it stopped. And then all of a sudden we had some major issues. I'm going to be focused on putting these resources together. We have Cal Fire. Cal Fire just moved 220 people into Cameron Park, a facility there that are right here local. We have the Red Hawk has a fire unit. I've seen them doing controlled burning. We have county, we have the state. Putting those resources together to work closer together is going to be key to me. We have the intelligence here. We have the smart people, but we need to use them smartly.
Far away, center there.
Okay, next we have Greg Clark, who's also running in District 4.
Hi, everyone. My name is Greg Clark. I am very thankful for being invited to this forum and for that you're hosting the forum and getting to hear from all these great candidates. I'm a dad. I'm a local attorney. I have a small law practice in Placerville. I'm also a school board leader at the Gold Trail Union School District, and I'm on the Placerville Fire Safe Council. I'm the only candidate in my race that grew up here. My wife and I both attended El Dorado High School and graduated. And after graduation, we moved away to get some further education. But once we had some children, we had to think about where we wanted to raise them. And we chose to come back to my wife's literal home in Placerville. We moved in to the place where she grew up. Now, about a year later in 2021, it was my first experience, my first personal experience with catastrophic fire. My family received a ready to evac notice. And so I spent the better part of 2 hours turning my car around and loading it with all my valuables, figuring out how I was going to get my dog where we needed to go, get my kids where we needed to go, where we could stay. It really had a huge impact on me. This is the place I love, and I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay this way. Wildfire is important not only for my safety, my children's safety, your family's safety, but also for the economic safety of our community. Catastrophic fire can destroy, our ability to properly exploit our recreational and agribusiness resources here, and it needs to be addressed effectively. If I'm elected to the board, I will focus on supporting OWOPR and fire safe councils, making sure that they're properly funded through the budget process, assist in finding additional grants for defensible space programs, because that's really what's going to be drawing insurers back to us, is making sure that we pose a good risk to them. Thank you.
Okay, and our final candidate opening for us is Gina Posey, who is also running in District 4 Supervisor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gina Posey. I'm running for supervisor here, and I've been in the fire arena for years. I'm the vice chair of the Greater Cameron Park Fire Safe Council. I'm the only candidate that has actually created a Firewise community of 66 homes, and we do more than 1,000 hours and more than $100,000 to make our community safer. I worked on keeping the Cameron Park Fire Station open, the second one. I've attended the burn day at Greenwood. I've been at board meetings talking about the defensible space ordinance when they wanted to approve that. I attend a lot of fire agencies meetings. Right now, they're working on a shared services agreement for Mosquito, Garden Valley, and Greenwood. I will continue to provide funding. I want to look at, though, the discretionary transient occupancy tax, the secure rural school funding, as well as PELPS. All those dollars are available to help in our space, and I'd like to know where that money is currently going and if it's going to the right place. I also know that we get a lot of grants from PG&E, CalPERS, the CFIP, as well as the U.S. Forest Service. We need to make sure we're going after every dollar we can possibly. As I said, I have extensive experience working in fire. It is something that we must get a handle on, because right now, when you look at all the money that folks are spending on homeowners insurance, they're not spending it in our local communities. They're not spending it to help small businesses. And it's really a crisis. I think this is our #1 crisis here in El Dorado County.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for your opening remarks. I'm just struck by how so many of you up here have personal experiences with fire. I mean, I guess it just shows how these are issues that cut across for all of us. And I love, what I always say is, what I love about fire is that it doesn't care what your politics are. It's gonna burn your house down. Whatever political party you belong to. So I appreciate all of you being here. So I'm gonna get us started with a question, that if people from the audience, I'm hoping you have questions or comments and you can line up at the microphone, but I'm gonna start us off. I personally do, the grants for the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, so that's where I'm starting my questions. Funding is very important to the work that we do. Federal grants in particular are critical to our local mitigation work, but they're often complex and slow and complicated. What would you, so this is directed towards our federal candidates. What would you do to improve access and speed for rural counties and nonprofits with grants that are focused on wildfire mitigation? And let's start with Chris. And again, you have 2 minutes and you'll get the 30-second warning. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris Bennett. Oh, well, so you go by Chris, not Christine.
I answered both.
So I'll call you Christine today, just to make it clear. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in my opening remarks, but one of the big problems we're facing right now is that federal grants are just getting denied for a lot of people. Like, I spoke to the Penn Valley Fire Department up in Nevada County. They're saying they're struggling to pay for $600,000 to replace their respirators because the grants are just getting denied. So in my mind, obviously we need to make it simpler and easier to apply for these grants, streamline the actual process, make it so that people just get through to the money faster, because the longer you'll have to wait, the more we have to jump through bureaucratic loopholes and stuff, the harder it's going to be. But fundamentally, we need to move away from the grant system, because these things are consistent, they're ongoing, and they are going to be a continuous problem for all of us. So until we actually get like full federal funding, we'll be working on making grants easier. But fundamentally, we just need to make it so that we're not begging the federal government for grants every time we need to do something that's every single year. It should just be a guaranteed federal fire funding program where all of our fire departments, all the people that are doing the mitigation work, the readiness work, they're just able to get the funding they need. Because otherwise, we're just going to run into the same problems we're facing now, where it's everyone has to try and compete for the same money. And who decides which county is the most important? Who decides which community is the most at risk? So it wastes a ton of resources, makes life harder for everyone, doesn't address the root cause of the problem. So fundamentally, that's what we need to do, in my opinion.
Okay, let's move to Rob.
Sorry.
Yes, for grants, it comes down to funding, and the main thing will have to be to encourage policies and bills that will make it easier to get the grants, remove the red tapes, anything that's making it slower, so that the process is sped up, so that the people affected, people that need it, get it when they need it as fast as possible. And then another thing that I will do if I'm elected in Congress will be to ensure that when such funds are released, just ensure that there is no, as much as possible, eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse in how the money is dispersed. Because if it's dispersed, there has to be serious efforts to make sure that it gets to the people that need it, and those people get it fast without the money or parts of the money going where it's not really needed or being not handled the right way. So that will be some of the policies that I will deploy if I'm working in Congress. One of the other things I'll also do is to be able to work across the aisle. So I'm a Republican candidate here. I'm one of the 2 Republicans that are working here, but I will be able to work across the aisle to ensure that the needs of firefighters in this community, especially CD7, is met. We have 52 congressional districts in California. CD7 has to get funded fast. There's an advantage in them getting it fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. So there are 3 general pots of money, I would say, are the ones that we need to make sure we're getting and we're getting easier. There's the CAL FIRE. Anybody who lives in the WUI knows that while the local fire departments are important, wildland fires are all about CAL FIRE getting out there and fire mitigation before the fire hits. So we need to make sure CAL FIRE is fully funded so they're ready to address the fire when it hits, the lightning strikes that we know come every summer and create these now new types of fires that throw embers a mile ahead of you. So then we have to do the forest thinning and we have to be ready to knock down those fires that happen in the forest. The other one that's really important is FEMA funds, and those funds have been blocked. They're getting released now. A huge part of those FEMA funds came through for prevention, and those have been stopped. I am on a bipartisan working group that's worked with the White House and Congress for the last 2 years to improve the FEMA funds. We've gotten the White House's group as well as Congress to accept our recommendations. One form for all of the emergency funding from all the different agencies. Transparency, no more giving the county putting the funds out and waiting 5 years to be reimbursed by FEMA. That is going to make a significant difference in getting the funding that we need out faster. So I will support all of those efforts. I'm already involved in doing those. What we need to now do is to fully fund that. The second part of what we need to do is fully fund our fire safe councils, where they are the ones who are going out doing the chipping programs, doing the dispensable space inspections, making sure that they work with the county on evacuation routes. We definitely need funding for the counties to deliver on evacuation routes. That's been the hardest part for us to plan and to finance, because there are so many, as you're gonna know, so many county roads out here, and the vegetation management that has to happen is expensive and there's no funding pot for it.
Okay, specifically to the grants. Right now, the way our funding works, and if this has been a problem, is we have omnibus bills that go through. The most recent one was the big, beautiful bill. We don't get down to the particulars like I have in the Wildfire Act. The details are not in these giant bills. So we need a representative in Congress that isn't willing to just sign on and wait and find out what's in it, and then wait for the state and local governments to figure out what you get, what wasn't covered in that bill. We've got to address our fire management as a single bill, the Wildfire Act, that addresses the grants, that helps bring the unity not only between the federal government, but the state and local governments and individual groups like this who know what's happening on the ground. As your representative in Washington, it's going to be my job to take in the information and be your conduit in Washington to make sure that we do fund the grants and the bills. Now, we're talking a lot about home hardening and people who have spent $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 to do their homes. Well, if you've been in Pollock Pines, which is where my property is, a lot of those people, they can't maintain their driveways, let alone any of the land around it. So in this bill, rather than grants, what we're offering for homeowners and for landlords alike is the ability to do a low or no interest loan. It goes against the equity in the property in order to hardening the house. But what it also does is you will not pay it back until you refinance or sell your home. This makes it affordable and easier access for all of us to work together.
Thank you. Any questions from Audience? No? Okay, Angel.
I'm not sure who to direct it to, but here's my question or comment. Currently, flood insurance only covers the top amount of money for that property. So let's say you own a property, you pay flood insurance and you get $250,000 to fix your home or rebuild it or whatever. And when I hear people talking about fire insurance being like flood insurance, I get really concerned because $250,000 is not going to cover the rebuilding of my home. So can whoever said those things, could they maybe explain it, or Keith? Maybe you have a thought on it. It is concerning to me. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, let's start with Keith, and but I think insurance is very much a state issue.
Well, she was talking about flood insurance, I think this is gonna go to me. And the reason is because I modeled the National Fire, the Wildfire Act after National Flood Insurance. But it doesn't mean it has the same policies. What it does is it creates, a insurance plan as opposed to the flaws that we have with with the National Flood Insurance Plan. But it gives us a model for a national policy. And that's where I'm gonna direct you to the flyer that's at the back. Because we need to make sure that the houses are fully funded, and that's where this is modeled after flood insurance just to get the coverage. But we've corrected a lot of those problems in the actual verbiage of the bill to make sure that our insurance goes through the Department of Treasury, and where we build in those rebuilding policies. Right now, when we're looking at California Fair Plan, it was supposed to be the last option, not the only option. And the current national flood insurance did again become the only option. So I'm not talking about getting rid of Fair Plan. What I'm talking about is bringing in professionals. Take in the outline that I have and what I addressed, and get bigger minds, people who are more involved. It gives us a starting block. And to get us at a national policy where we're building that mitigation pool so that we can take care of the hardening, we can take care of making sure different agencies work together, and I'm out of time.
Okay, so I'm gonna give an opportunity to each of the congressional representatives to answer, and then we'll also ask Keith as the insurance commissioner to have a comment. So go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the National Flood Insurance Plan is a potential model, which is very flawed. There actually is a better model. It's actually the terrorism insurance plan, believe it or not, which works because it's fully funded. The key here is that we cannot have a federal insurance plan. The job at the federal level is going to be a backstop. We have to have insurance companies right now work better to make sure that we get the money back for the homes that we lose. And that we need them to lower their rates. That's the number one thing we need right now because they cost so much. Our group of counties, our group set of solutions included using the insurance company's own plan, the IBHS study that said when you do your home hardening, when you do your defensible space, and when your county does your landscape clearing for you, you've reduced the risk to insurance companies by 40 to 60%. And our ask is that they transfer those savings back to your ratepayers. They should be giving, when you're doing that work right now, you know, you're getting, how much are you getting a discount? 0 to 5%. They should be giving you at least 30% discount. Lower the cost of the rate so you can afford it. Then we have to deal with the insurance companies, the fact that they're crying foul, that they've lost so much money because of all the wildfires we've had. But when you look at their investment portfolio, again, their own studies, they have plenty of money. But regulating those insurance companies is something that the state has to do because of the proposition that is restricting the hand of the insurance commissioner. And I'm sure you'll talk about that as well.
Okay, but first we're gonna hear from the other congressional candidates. So Ralph, go ahead.
Yes, when it comes to, thank you for the question. When it comes to insurance, flood insurance, there should be a difference between flood insurance and fire insurance. And because the effects that they have on perhaps the homeowners are different. So I agree with the lady with asked the question. flood insurance should be able to cover everything completely that the person that had the, I don't know, fire insurance should be able to, completely cover all the expenses that the person that lost, maybe a house in a fire, will have to incur. It shouldn't be just, covering just the top dollar amount. It should be a complete coverage. And then, of course, on the insurance companies, we all understand that insurance companies, their main aim is to pay out as little as possible. So there's need for serious regulation on them. Yes, they have money and they will always claim that they don't have enough to pay out. So there has to be regulation to make sure that they're paying out as much as they pay out to adequately take care of a person that has lost property and probably things that have sentimental value if there was a fire incident. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, there's a few different drivers of the costs here. One is that insurance companies always need to make higher profit than they did last year. And so they're always going to be increasing ratepayer rates. Another is that because of man-made climate change, we're having more and more risk every single year. That's how you know that climate change is real, because when the home insurance companies started pulling out after taking our premiums for more than 100 years, they did so because they actually had the data that showed them what is going on, and they realized it would be too expensive to continue operating in California, just like they're doing in Florida with floods. So fundamentally, the problem is that we've decided that people's homes and our ability to replace them in the case of a disaster that's being caused by the fossil fuel industry is really going to be driven by a company that's trying to make money off of us. And fundamentally, that is always going to lead to a terrible situation where people get our insurance claims denied. It gets more expensive every single year. The problems that are actually causing climate change don't go away. And fundamentally, we all get screwed. So that's why we actually need to go to a public flood and fire insurance program that fully funds the replacement cost of our homes and is paid for by the ones who are responsible for these increased rates of floods and fires. Until we do that, until we put those externalized costs back onto the ones responsible, nothing is going to change. And we're just going to be having the exact same conversation every single year after year after year. And it's only going to get worse. And we are already seeing significant rates of people turning into climate refugees, having to leave their homes because they can't afford it anymore. Is that my done?
30 seconds.
Or 30 seconds. Okay, cool. Yeah. So fundamentally, I think we need our home insurance and also our health insurance programs to be nonprofit and fully federally funded and public at the national level, because the purpose of the federal government is to basically be the funder. Like the federal government pays and then the states are supposed to actually issue and regulate. But what we're doing now is we're saying, states, you figure it out. Maybe we'll deny your stuff because we don't like how you voted. But fundamentally, we have to actually solve the problem. And we also need to make sure that people aren't going to lose their homes.
As insurance commissioner, give us your thoughts.
Thank you. Well, I must say this. Flood insurance is one of my least favorite policies to do because one, they're way too expensive. And the coverage is very minimal. And to answer your question directly, absolutely flood coverage should be mirroring what you have for fire coverage. There shouldn't be a change. You shouldn't only have $250,000 here and then have $500,000 to cover your home for a fire. I think what they're looking at is because when there's a flood, you really just, you have to replace the foundation, your personal property. But flood coverage should be a coverage that should be intertwined in with your home policy. What we're seeing is this. Because flood coverage is only required by lenders of certain areas, and I've seen these policies cost more than your standard home policies. I've seen some flood policies cost $3,000 a year, while your home policy costs, $2,000 a year in some instances. It's very profitable for these insurance companies. Don't let them fool you. Just because the insurance companies are leaving, don't think that it's not profitable. You see, there's a confidence problem with the insurance companies and why they're leaving. But you're absolutely right. We have to restructure our flood coverage to match exactly what the fire insurance is covering. And we have to restructure it and make sure that you're getting the proper coverage and benefits if something like that happens. And I also would like to see some rebates because flood coverage, thank you, they're not as typical as a fire claim would be. So because of that, I believe the premium should be less. I think that we should restructure it to give you some credits if you don't file it. And getting out of a flood policy, it's almost like pulling teeth. you almost take it to the grave with you, if I can say that. So flood policies have a lot of issues that need to be addressed that I will address once I'm in the office.
But yeah, go ahead on this one.
Got a question that I guess I'd like the more local candidates to answer.
Supervisors?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So as somebody who's out working in my fire safety council, I've had a lot of comments lately that in aggregate are giving me some concern. So I'm hearing over and over again from people that are making the tough decisions of, I can't afford my insurance, I'm selling my home, I'm buying an RV and I'm selling my home, buying an RV, moving my RV onto my child's property somewhere in the county, say. That's been one scenario. Or I'm dropping my insurance altogether, I'm gonna take the money, the $10,000 to $20,000 I spend annually on my insurance, and I'm gonna use it to hard my home. So these insurance premiums are causing real people to make really scary but interesting choices in how to manage their lives. And as in aggregate, I see this really starting to affect our county. And in a more rural area, if this continues, I could see the housing market collapsing if people cannot afford the insurance. The price of the house has to go down, or only investors that don't have to have insurance will be buying in homes and then will be living in communities of rental homes. So I wanted to hear the local candidates' thoughts on how this large level issue is potentially affecting the county going forward.
Okay, Tina, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so you're absolutely right, it's decimating our county, in fact. You're seeing that, houses aren't selling as quickly, people are moving out of the community, you heard me say earlier some of the other effects. And the only real way to get ahead of this is we've got to break our homeowners insurance, in my mind, at least into two pieces, regular fire insurance and wildfire insurance. Because then at least you'd have a choice to have some coverage. And if you get rid of all your coverage, you don't have liability insurance, which then puts all of your assets at risk. And a lot of folks don't understand that. So this is a major crisis for us here rurally. And I think we need to do a lot more to make sure that we streamline our defensible space work, that we go out, we get the grants. And we're going to have to tie this back to the insurance companies. So we're doing all this great work here, all the grants we're getting. But I haven't seen enough tie back to the actual insurance companies that are making these actual decisions of how they are deciding our rates. For example, fire scores. If anybody could tell me how an insurance company decides a fire score, they'll give you some idea, but you can't figure out how to go back to them and say, no, that's wrong. That information's wrong. It's in a little black box called fire score. At the state level, I'd like to see someone take that down there on the other end and put some legislation passed about fire scores. We need to get fire breaks around our communities now, because if we don't, we also need to have evacuation plans now before we need them. And all this defensible space home hardening work, we need to continue that, and including the funding that we have locally to help people who are veterans, disabled, low income, so that they can afford to get defensible space work done on their property. But there's no easy answer. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead, Greg.
Thank you for the question. I mean, it's concerning because we want District 4 in El Dorado County to remain rural and keep the character that we have, which is primarily a county of home ownership, right? One of the concerns that I have if people start dropping their homeowners insurance and they don't move because I don't know if you've tried it, it's hard as hell to get a new house now or to buy a new house and the new insurance and the new mortgage with the interest rates. People are just going to stay there and then try to defend their own property when the catastrophic fire rolls in, and that puts them at risk. It puts their neighbors at risk. It puts our firefighters at risk and public safety at risk. I think what I would like to encourage when I'm on the board is for OWOPR and the fire safety councils who are already doing quite a bit to do more, particularly in the area of education on how to make, to enhance the defensible space around property, how to harden your home, right? Because if people are going to stay, or they're not gonna be paying for their insurance, we want them to be able to keep their home and minimize the risk to that property. Because once one house goes, that makes it more likely that another one will go as well. And so, you know, I would find funding sources that would allow OWOPR to continue doing the great work that they're doing, that would allow the fire safety councils to go out, and thank you, do more defensible space evaluations, encourage them to put together lists of contractors or other people who can do the work to complete the home hardening that needs to be done.
Thank you for the question. This is something that I've personally experienced having go through Fair Plan, and living on Lotus Road. When I moved into my house in 1990, my insurance was $1,200 a year. Today it's $8,000 a year. However, there have been some changes going on. Insurance companies are businesses. If they're here and they lose $5 billion a year, they're just be here. They are businesses. They can't function without making a profit. We've been making some changes for both the homes and then management of our lands. I think we're seeing some improvements. We didn't have a major fire in the state last year. However, at the board level, we are somewhat limited. Now there are 58 counties in the state. Each has 5 supervisors, except for one. We have some mass that we can go to, say, the insurance commissioner, and push for things that they can support our rural counties and point out what we've done, whether it's clearing, whether it's materials that we do, whether it's pooling some resources. Now we are seeing some changes. 5 years ago, you probably wouldn't see a policy written by what they call a non-admitted insurance company in the state. If you're familiar with admitted, non-admitted, okay. I mean, my insurance policy today comes from a company out of Florida, which is the #1 state for losses in the country. It's not California, it's Florida for hurricanes. Brand new insurance company starting up there writing policies. And it is a general policy, which I prefer, where it's fire and the contents. I guess that's personal preference, but I'm saving money on it. And it is an option that I didn't have 3-4 years ago. So I think we're moving in that direction. We can do more. On a supervisor level, so 30 minutes.
Sorry, I totally missed your 30 seconds, but yeah.
One thing I don't like the density of houses we're building. Supervisors prove that. I think we're building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my fault, I know. Okay. Yeah, fine. I'll take it. You're okay.
This is a question for some of the federal candidates, and it's shifting a little bit of what's your position on managed wildfire, and in particular some of the current policy and legislation that's being either promoted or proposed.
Let's start with Chris Bennett.
Managed wildfire and policy / legislation that's being produced. I think fundamentally the big issue that we're seeing across the board is that no one is interested in trying to solve the problem. We're just trying to slap band-aids onto things. So fundamentally, like, we need to go back to actually taking care of our forest health. You know, there's been a few studies that have come out showing that one of the big issues was greed-based resource extraction, hydraulic mining, but the biggest, most fundamental problem for our forest health has been basically banning cultural burns that indigenous people used to do, because that was one of the ways that they actually prevented the build out, actually kept the forest healthy. And since we've segmented off all these different areas, we also see problems where a lot of lands that are undeveloped and are basically just an extension of the forest are owned by absentee landlords. And those lands are not being addressed by CAL FIRE. And so a lot of the problems that we're facing is really the fact that we are all being impacted by these things, but any individual becomes the weakest link. So until we start addressing those root causes, we're never going to get anywhere. It's just going to be trying to figure out how we're going to split an ever dwindling amount of money to actually fix the problem. But I think some of the solutions that are being proposed are okay for the short run. You know, I think it's good that we do have some grant programs out there that do help fund rural fire departments when it comes to trying to do some of this home hardening stuff and defensible space, and also just trying to, you know, take out some of these trees that are, you know, collapsing and falling over, which are an easy cause. Another problem that we face though is actually related to homelessness. You know, a lot of fires start because someone is getting pushed out of a city or out of a town because they can't afford to live there. They go into the forest and then, you know, they have to stay warm, they need to eat, they start a fire, and then that can easily spread. So we also just need to address the root cause of the problems people are facing. In a lot of cases, it's poverty. In a lot of cases, it's, like I said, absentee landlords. It's an aging population where a lot of people are on fixed incomes. They can't afford to actually do the hardening work, can't do it themselves anymore. The grant money's just not there. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do, but fundamentally, we need legislation that's not just gonna keep slapping the Band-Aid, we need to fix it. Sorry,
Okay,
Jessica.
so the question was about, managed fire, I just wanna remind. Managed wildfire, so just wanna redirect you back to what the question was. Go ahead, Christine. No, we'll do Christine first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So managed wildfires, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not familiar with the term. Can you tell me?
The other term that's often used is let it burn, which is a misnomer and misapplication. It's the idea of looking at, as a wildfire is burning, of identifying it, and a lot of pre-work of identifying where it could be allowed to burn to move in the direction of good fire.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, you know, that's where the prescribed burns come in, is to get ahead of it. So instead of, that's all part of this Wildfire Act, is working with state, local, and federal so that we can do the prescribed burns. I know there are people who are against it. I would not be in favor of letting it burn, because that's picking and choosing. You know, a wildfire starts, we know they are preventable, and just letting it take out a community because, oh, well, the fire is already started. I don't think that's wise or responsible, but I do understand where it may be more affordable if they can put the perimeter around it. Not that I agree with it. And just real quickly, I want to address what the other lady had asked, is because I am a real estate agent, I do work in this community. Right now have more than 70 orders for what's called a BPO, to go out and look at the properties that are being foreclosed on, and that is just in El Dorado County, and I'm only working with one vendor. So what you talked about with people losing their homes or trying to sell them and there are no buyers because they can't get insurance for them, this is very real. This is happening, and this very well could cause a collapse, at least in the high fire areas in the housing markets.
Okay, we'll move to Ralph next.
Yes, thank you for the question. I wouldn't totally support the legislation in Congress. If I'm elected, I'll push for, managing the wildfire or let it burn. I wouldn't do that. I would sponsor or support legislation that is more focused on policies that will prevent fire from starting in the first place. So I believe prevention is better than cure in this situation. And another thing too, though, it depends on the specific situation. Each fire incident or each fire is unique. So it could also be a situation where it has to be done on a case-by-case basis, and the actual fire and the area where it's happening can actually be examined. So I would want to bring evidence-based solutions to problems, working as the next congressman for California District 7. That's how I would approach it. So I wouldn't just go along with a policy or a bill that just pushes something like let it burn. But I will be able to look at each situation specifically and see how the problems that arose from that fire can be solved. Thank you.
Thank you. So to address the first part of your question, I support the Fix the Forest Act, a bipartisan bill that's widely supported right now in Congress and the Senate. which addresses all of the issues that you're talking about, that we're talking about up here, prevention, managing fire, and mitigation. I think when the reason you're raising this is because, the Forest Service for so many years with this overstocked, 100 years of overstocked forest, stopped every fire that started, and that resulted in this overstocking of the forest, and that's why you're asking about this. Forest Service has changed their policies, and they're now starting to let fires burn. And then one of those fires got away and created one of these huge wildfires, that we had. You know which one, I'm trying to remember the name. Thank you. So I support managed fire, but it has to be based on the science. You have to figure out which ones you're gonna address and which ones you're not. In Nevada County, we're lucky enough to have a CAL FIRE base right near us, and we have mutual agreement with all the fire agencies. And there is a policy that we will knock down every fire. We'll keep it below 10 acres if it's within around the town. So they throw everything at it to keep it to 10 acres. Beyond that, as many of us know, most of the huge wildfires that we're facing start out in the forest from the lightning strikes. You get one big thunderstorm and you've got 1,100 lightning strikes. Those get out of control because of the overstocked forest. Those fires turn into mega fires, create their own weather, and that weather throws the embers even farther. So those need to be let burn, especially if they're far out. But at some point, if they start getting close to town, you have to address them as well.
My name's Steve Allen, I'm from the Placerville Fire Safe Council. I'm an assessor, I inspect, look at the homes. So, we're all familiar with zone 1 and zone 2 rules, which is the 30-foot, 100-foot requirements out there, but there's now this new zone 0. And that is the area within 5 feet of the perimeter of your house. The requirements as promulgated by the state fire marshal were supposed to have been enacted on all homes in December of last year, still has not been signed in. In the meantime, I get questions from people that, you know, because the rules vary, everybody seems to have a different opinion on it. The financial burden or the financial cost of implementation and compliance with zone 0 has met with great resistance throughout the state and has resulted in a lot of complaints and stuff to assembly that has postponed the inaction of them. How do you propose people pay for what are going to wind up being mandated improvements or changes to their homes, to the tune of thousands and thousands of dollars potentially? One of the biggest things I hear is the vegetation rule, where you shall have no vegetation within 5 feet of the house. And in past years, people have spent, large amounts of money on landscaping. They're being told to tear it all out now and put in hardscaping. I'd just like to hear your opinions on how this progresses and how people can and should be able to afford to do this if so mandated.
Okay, we'll direct this question to the state candidate. So let's start with Jaron.
All right, state candidates, we finally got one.
I was about ready to jump in with one for you.
You didn't want to do the flood?
So this has been one of the challenges that personally worked on. Where are we at? I see him. Oh, there we are. So, in implementing 4291, one of the challenges I think rural areas have particularly is being able to afford the additional fire inspectors and making sure they're able to go out, cover all the different properties. Financing and how people are able to pay. Some folks can do the work, some folks have the money, many don't, especially in older communities in the state and more rural areas. So looking at equity-backed state programs, for example, PACE is used for energy conservation, where the savings offset the payments. I think that can be adapted for fire home hardening. I think the state also has to be the one that bears the responsibility. Oftentimes, the narrative that we are told is we built irresponsibly. It is our communities that are at fault. When these fire suppression strategies to stop at 10 a.m. the next day, federal lands management, even the state codes at the time, banning indigenous burning, that was not locally derived decision-making, that was state and federal. And so I think it is fair for us to ask the large water districts that rely on this watershed also to ask Sacramento to put funding into tax credits for risk reduction, to put money upfront to help particularly seniors, veterans be able to achieve this. I think we need to have some flexibility when it comes to managed green space, irrigated green space around homes. You know, if you've got zone zero protection, but your attic fan doesn't have a spark quenching cover, it is gonna burn from the inside out long before you end up having fire going to the end. Is that the time 30? 30. And so I think bringing some common sense to the rules they're trying to do with the same goal, offering those financing opportunities, which is huge. And reminding California that when we're trying to save money, there's a lot of talk about affordability and cost accountability. What they have failed to do is they are afraid to spend millions in order to save billions. They created much of this issue. We need to have that invested back in our communities. I believe I will have the best access to do that.
Yes, I know. I've torn out the climbing fig and my beautiful rose tree and my camellia around the house in Georgetown. The state has failed us. When we bought the ranch in 1999 from Georgetown, from where we live, next to the CDFA airport and Spanish Dry Dickens Road, you could see down to the town of Georgetown. You can't do that anymore. Less than 30 years and that undergrowth is built up. The state has a responsibility to manage the state forests. The federal forests are over 50% of the forests in California. The federal government has a responsibility as well. And the other thing is, if we have the state upholding its responsibility and having the fuel breaks, thinning the forests, and making sure that the projects can come through in a good amount of time, it means we have a better economy. That means we can have the timber industry cutting down the timber. It means we can have farming. It means we can have cattle grazing on state land. It means that we can have recreation. And all of that is dollars, tax dollars, back into the county so that local fire departments, public safety, and all of the needs for the county are paid for at that county level, and the county gets to decide how that money should be spent. District 4 starts in Truckee, goes all the way down to Inyo County, not only takes in these sorts of communities, also takes in Patterson. There is not one policy that covers all of those areas. It should be a state decision, local decision.
Move to Neva, please.
There it is. Okay. I think one thing I didn't mention in my intro, because I was trying to be quick on time, is that I worked 26 years in the state legislature. And so my job was on the Senate and the Assembly floor during every single floor session. I think I only missed, to be honest to God, maybe like 2 of them. And one of the things that most infuriated me sitting there on the floor was when a bill came up and they mandated something either for an agency or for just constituents or for a county or for anything, and then they didn't provide funding for it. And so, I mean, in terms of, like as a candidate and going into office, my commitment to make certain that whatever I introduce makes certain that it has some sort of funding source. I'm not in the habit usually of talking about my opponent, but right now he's sitting in office and he does have a bill. It's AB, I think it's 2037. And the bill itself is, and I also think it's more important that you know this, because I think it should be, there should be a big push right now from the folks in the community to make certain it gets passed and funded. But it's a grant program for seniors and those with disabilities to harden their homes in case they have to, and that they have a grant funding or that they have funding to do that. It made it out of appropriations committee, but the funding source was stripped out. The expectation, I imagine, is just to get it through one house, and then perhaps maybe it'll be added to the budget or maybe added in the Senate. I don't know. But I would say that that's something that's very important. Like, it's a tangible thing that you guys can, advocate on your community's behalf. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of funding, if we mandate something, we need to make certain that people are able to afford it. And if you're somebody who can't, then there should be programs out there to help you.
Steve, was it? Great question. Zone 0 is one of the toughest zones, and I had the honor of speaking to Jessica about some of the zoning zoning things that are going on, but zone zero basically deals with immediately around the home. And it can be a hard issue to deal with because you can't have any furniture out there, you can't have any fire piles. It deals with some of the things on your roof that needs to be cleared out. So zone zero is a area that can really maybe unbeautify your home. But to answer your question, I think the state needs to pay for it completely. I think what they need to do is they require you to take care of whatever you need to take care of. But then there's contractors that need to go out that have to do the things that maybe you can't do. And let them file for the reimbursements. That way, that fee is completely taken off of your plate. Listen, we're trying to do things to save the state money, but the state is going to have to invest in its people. It's going to have to be proactive with what we're trying to do to save these homes. And so I believe the state needs to take that full pay, whatever the cost is. You hire a contractor, hey, you guys come, clear off my roof, do the gutters, whatever in zone zero that you can't do physically, they can do and file it through the state, and the state pays the fee. It shouldn't cost you guys to try to protect your home.
I got $100,000 worth of landscaping underneath my windows.
Wait, you have to go to the microphone.
More specific here. Nobody's house is the same. We've got 400 square foot ADUs, and we've got 5,000 square foot big mansions. And the landscaping requirements for stuff around them are vastly different, but the requirement's the same. So if I got $100,000 worth of landscaping around my $2 million house, you're advocating that the state would pay to have all of that removed, where the cost of the state on this 400-foot house that has some plants out in front of it would be, likewise paid. But where's the equity in it in terms of taxpayer dollars? Because this is all going to be obviously taxpayer dollars. And so as I own my $2 million house, I'm taking advantage, of the taxpayers to hardscape my house. Where does the responsibility, I'm kind of on both sides of this thing, but where does it fall upon the homeowner, to participate or cooperate in this, or reasonably and equitably finance his compliance rather than being a gift or paid for by the state? And that's just, the opinion.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that. It's more of a comment, right? I think for them to consider that, if that's an issue.
Consider that.
Yeah.
There's that.
Anybody have the other? Okay.
Do we take that question for the local people?
Sure.
I'd
Yeah.
love to answer.
Okay, yeah, we'll move that to the local people then. The local people.
To the local.
It's a super candidates, say that.
Zone zero is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. That comes from 100 different laws from the state, from anything that they have absolutely no experience, and they take and they mandate something. As someone that's created over 500 burn piles in the 40 years I've been here, I've seen vegetation ignite 10 feet away from a fire if it's a hot fire. What is zone zero going to do for you in a situation like that? If you're in a rural area and there's a big fire that's out there. If you're in an urban area and it's the homes and you've got Paradise burning down, or Malibu or Southern California, those fires are up high. It's roof to roof. Zone zero is not going to do a thing for you. I have a power pole with a transformer PG&E on my property, and they have to take clear underneath it. They have fire-safe vegetation that they can put under that pole. I have fire-safe bushes underneath that transformer. Zone zero is everything. So how can PG&E have something that's okay, but me as a homeowner not? It's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of. It shows absolutely no planning or knowledge on the issue, and I would fight that at a supervisor level, big time.
Any other local, go ahead, Greg.
Thanks for the question, Steve. I don't think zone zero is stupid. Zone zero, the purpose of that is to keep the base of your home safe from a windborne ember. You don't want an accumulation of embers underneath like a rough I'm a lawyer, not a builder, so I'm gonna screw up all of this. There's underneath the rough ledge, that accumulation of embers catching the side of your house on fire and then it burning up through the middle. So I think zone zero is a good idea. I sympathize with someone who has invested a significant amount of capital in making their home beautiful. I was at a United Policyholders wrap meeting yesterday via Zoom, and they had a wonderful presentation on Zone Zero that was talking about how that rule is still sort of being batted around. And it sounds like it's changing, so you can still keep some plants and other sort of landscaping. You don't have to go full hardscaping within the first 5 feet. And so I think that would be a welcome change. But I think, this is a good policy that we just need to find the right solution and one that is palatable to homeowners so that they can see the wisdom in protecting the base of their home and the area around their home, because they're also going to be helping their neighbor protect their home and their neighbor's neighbor protect their home.
Gina? I sympathize with everybody who spent all this money making their home look beautiful from the front. I have a dead zone now in front of my home of 0 to 5 feet. I don't know what to do with it because it's heavily sloped. But I also realize that we've got to look at the data and we've got to understand fire. And I don't think any of us would say, I'd rather have that vegetation near my home, knowing my home is going to burn down. So it's a transitional situation. I want to see the data, and I have seen a number of videos of homes that didn't have vegetation in 0 to 5 and did have, and then they throw fire at it, and you can see there's a major difference. The ones that don't have the vegetation didn't burn. That's a big deal. But again, I really sympathize because you're going to need the landscape quite differently than you did previously. And so the question is, should it be mandated or should it be optional? And that's really a tough one, because I do think that we as homeowners are losing a lot of our rights to insurance companies today. They're dictating to us what we can insure, how much we have to insure for, and we don't get to make those choices. And I think we need to find a balance where I, as a homeowner, I get to choose how much risk I'm willing to take. Again, not trying to put my neighbors in harm's way, but I want to see the data and I want to be able to make a good choice. I do not like the state dictating to me what I must do in that zone.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name's Dan Yelenchuk. I've been a resident of this county for well over 60 years.
Yeah, you'll just have to speak into it. You can pick it up also. Yep. You can.
So the people online, so the recording will be that's why.
Okay. My name's Dan Yelenchuk. I've been a resident of this county for well over 60 years. And this net zero is one of the most objectionable things I've ever heard. What are you going to tell all these people like myself and my wife who are backyard gardeners? We have vegetable beds within that 5 feet of our house. And it's a very wholesome hobby. It helps supplement our food. Why are you even considering that? These vegetable gardens aren't going to be burning like a bunch of manzanita or greasewood. This is just ridiculous. I hope and I urge you to think this net zero out very seriously.
I'm going to let that stand in the comments and see already responses on zone zero. But thank you for that. Any other questions from the audience? Paul, I did not. Go ahead, Paul.
Fire is our greatest hazard. Water is our most precious commodity. We both rely on a healthy forest. And it was mentioned a little bit here, but I'd like to see, and the federal, state, and local all have a role in maintaining healthy forests. The extremes of clear cutting and the other extremes of no vegetation management clearly have not worked. So the question is, at the different levels of government, what do you expect your role to be if elected in ensuring healthy forests?
Okay, well, we'll start with the federal. Heidi, why don't you go first?
Thank you. Yeah, great question, because we each have a role. The homeowner has a role too, as we just heard, right? The counties have a role because they do have to do the landscape scale clearing. The state has a role because of the insurance piece of the state forest. And as a federal candidate, the feds have a role as well. The number one role they have right now is getting on top of their overstocked forests, which are creating the biggest hazard we have around all of these communities right here where I live, throughout the northern parts of the state. The high hazard rating that we're all living under is going to create problems for our affordability, and the fire danger is not going to go away until that is addressed. We also have to provide funding at the state and county levels to the fire safe councils, to the firewise communities, to help people do their part in at the other levels. There are innovative solutions out there. I will say, right, I've been part of the solutions already at the state and federal level, going to keep working on those. But there are also innovative solutions out there that I want to see more attention to. There's a group called Blue Forest that is working very hard to encourage CEOs, and they're actually working right now pretty well with the risk managers, to instead of buying insurance, buying mitigation in the forest around communities. So they're investing in the communities to make them more fire safe. They're not wasting their money on insurance, and they're going to create a solution to the problem. Now, the group has done the science, and they've done the finances to show that this works, and they have some takers. So this is a really great innovative solution that thank you. At the federal level, we could encourage that. We could support programs like that, which are going to be better at addressing the whole problem than trying one by one to knock down the overstocked forest for every federal forest in the state.
Okay, let's move to Chris Bennett.
So the question was basically the role of the different levels of government and how to address the healthy forests. I think the big thing that the federal piece provides is funding. You know, we need to fund these efforts. Like Eva mentioned, we should not be having like unfunded mandates, because it just puts the burden on everyone, which means no one's going to want to do it. I think we also need to bring back the tried and true forest management methods that, you know, the cultures here did for thousands of years before people first arrived on Plymouth Rock, right? Like, we need to make sure that we are bringing back these indigenous practices. You know, I spoke with the Nisenan tribe up in Nevada City, and they're saying it was just like a couple years ago that a federal forester came and said, hey, so how do we manage these forests better? Like, there's already a situation where a lot of people that don't necessarily know the right way to move forward. I think that we need to also obviously undo the damage that's been done to the Forestry Service and the EPA, because the people with the expertise are now basically losing their jobs or being forced to move. They're trying to sell off the lands. I also think we just need to increase federal coordination and cooperation. You know, one of the things that happened recently was a fire started on federal lands. I think it was the Grizzly Fire, and they didn't do anything about it for 3 days, and then it turned into a giant catastrophe. So we need to make it so that our state and federal agencies are actually like co-managing these federal forests, not doing the thing where the state is like, hey, we're worried about what's going on over there, and then the federal government folks are like, well, we clocked out for the day, so we'll check in at 9 a.m. Besides that, we just need to make sure that every single level knows what the options are. Is that done, or 30 seconds? 30 seconds. Okay, cool. So fundamentally, you know, our federal government, like always, it needs to be about funding. It needs to be about fixing the system, holding the fossil fuel companies accountable, making sure the home insurance companies are doing their part as well, because this is a holistic problem, and systemic problems require systemic solutions. But obviously, we just need to get down to the local level as well, which means more coordination.
Let's go to Christine.
It's on, okay. What we're talking about is the difference between reactive and proactive. You're talking about healthy forest and how it protects our watershed. This is going to start with the federal government and requiring that we get in there and do the work to clean up the forest so that we can protect our watershed. And it really is it's a simple answer to a complex problem. This also goes to the unfunded mandates. When we're talking about the zero clearance around your home. We have buildings in this area that are more than 100 years old with giant oaks around them. Tearing down landscaping around houses, that's reactive. And it doesn't protect the house. Now, if you live up here, you know we get triple digit heat. Ripping out trees that protect the home, that provide shade, which in Sacramento, we're the city of trees. We do need to be able to live in our homes and have the right to enjoy our homes, but we've got to hold the federal government accountable and state governments accountable. And as your representative in Congress, this is going to be a priority for me, is that we put the money into funding the forest, put people to work, that we mandate cooperation between the different branches, including FEMA, State Forest Service, CAL FIRE, going down to the local. We need to be able to enjoy our lands, not be forced to react to bad legislation.
Okay, Ralph.
Yes, I agree with what Ms. Fish just said, and it's all about proactive, really, because if things are done at first, then there are a lot of things that we will not be reacting to. And let me get back to the job of Congress. Of course, Congress has the responsibility of controlling the purse, so it comes down to funding. And what do we do in this? It comes down to electing congressmen or women that take this issue very seriously and will fight and be ready to walk across the aisle to get necessary funding as soon as it's available and as soon as it's needed, and actually make it available to the residents of CD7. I think one for trap, I put it this way, that the deer that gets to the brook first drinks the fresh water. So in this kind of situation, CD7 needs to be able to have all the resources that it needs when it comes to adequate water for our forests, and also the water that's needed to fight the fires when it breaks out. So it has to do with the funding. It has to do with a elected official at the federal level that can work across the aisle to get this funding needed as fast as possible to the residents that actually need it when fire incidents take place.
I'm gonna mix it up a little and move to the locals. Greg, would you like to go first?
Sure. So at the local level, obviously we'll be the ones doing the work. And so being on a school board and having kids, 2 young kids myself, I think, how can we get the kids to do this work? And I think a good thing that I could do or a good role I would have would be to advocate with the county Board of Education to expand their career pathways program that they have at each high school. We have a public safety program, I believe it's called the STAR program for the sheriff. Why not have something for forestry? And we can get local kids interested in the idea of maintaining forests, maintaining our watersheds here. I think that would have ancillary benefits because those kids, when they get out of high school, could then think about, well, maybe we start a business here, and then we have some competitive contracting in order to go in and work in the areas that need that sort of maintenance. Obviously, I would continue my advocacy role in looking for more money so that we could properly fund these efforts to keep our rivershed healthy.
So a couple things. First, I would look at the PILTS funding. We get about $800,000 a year. I'd look at the SRS funding, which is about $1.8 million a year. Both of those come from organizations with the Forest Service, and let's see how those dollars are spent and whether they can be spent better. The OWAPR organization is a collaborative and a coordination organization that includes the Forest Service. So now we have folks that are all working together. They're also working with the CWPP plan, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which looks overall the entire county, including the Forest Service, looking to figure out what are the projects that they need to work on first that have the most need for mitigation. Let's keep doing that. I completely agree that we need to just have more apprenticeship programs in our high school in general, and those would include the fire apprenticeship programs, as well as any jobs in that space for defensible space and home hardening, as well as tending to our forest, so I think that's also a good opportunity. Biomass has to be thrown in there, we need to have some kind of a biomass facility. I know some folks went and took a tour up in Ione, looked at their biomass facility, we've been talking about it for years, let's figure out if we can't do something there so that we have a way to help make our forest healthier by having some place to take all that material. I also want to throw out logging. We have all these logging roads in our forests, and I wonder if those are actually good evacuation paths or not. And if so, how can we make them evacuation roads for us? And those are just some of the things that immediately come to mind.
Robert?
Thank you. Healthy forests is absolutely key. I will respectfully disagree with you on one of your statements saying clear cuts were not good. Clear cuts restore a natural meadow in a forest. And for a healthy forest, there's different animals that live in different environments. So deer, rabbits, birds, they browse on grasses, seeds, bushes. The higher trees that have nothing going under them is where you would see your owls, your hawks, your bear. They're different areas. But someone that spent a lot of time actually jeeping up there and seeing the clear cuts that they did. They didn't clear cut a whole mountain. They clear cut an area. So for a fire control area, when there's a big fire going and it's going into a 100-acre clear cut, that's, you can control there at that point. You're putting fire breaks in. So I happen to personally think that there was a lot of advantage to this, but you have to manage this. You can't do the whole mountain. Then you have erosion going into the water, which is clogging everything up. So your key was healthy forests, which is a combination of both. The resources out there, yeah, I was a scoutmaster. We'd go up there, we'd go camping, we had community service projects. We did clearings. We would take non-native plants and weeds and bushes and manzanita, and we would clear it out. And the scouts did that for free. There was NRA did Please Leave it NRA Clean. They brought kids up. FFA. So there's some good resources where you can put people on the ground out there. Our Jeep clubs did the same thing. But the key is, having that healthy forest, not focusing just water or just, clearing. You have to have the whole package.
Okay, let's go to Eva.
Takes a while to turn on. At a state level, I think one of the first things that we can do, because the state is making efforts to take care of its land, the folks running for federal office, I've already addressed the federal lands here, but I think we also need to focus on the landowners who have large properties that we can't get a hold of, and making certain that we work with them to take care of their land. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is that none of this happens if we don't have a solid pool of firefighters and we don't take care of them. And so I think at a state level, we could, one, work towards apprenticeship programs, but also making certain their healthcare needs are met, their, they have good salaries, making certain that their mental health is taken care of. It's a hard job. I had many friends when I was in college who did this on their summers, and I have stories from them that I won't repeat, but it's hard work. And so I think that we need to take care of our firefighters. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, and this isn't me getting political, this is just good project management and leadership, is an ideological consensus among the federal government, the state government, the local, all the agencies, and making certain that everybody's on the same page, because right now people aren't on the same page. So I think those three things just quickly are probably something the state can help work on.
Let's go to Alexander.
As the state senator, it's my job to fight for rural communities. And I can tell you there is already money plenty available. Let's start and look at water a little bit. My husband served on natural resources, agriculture, and infrastructure with Lamalfa, who'll be replaced by Gallagher. So let's go after that first. There is $28 billion sitting in the Bureau of Reclamation to be used for water. El Dorado Irrigation District still has wood flumes. They burn in fires. We can't get them replaced with the federal money after we need to. Infrastructure dollars that are available in DC can be used so that we make sure we have wood flumes. You have hydroelectric plants that are archaic. We need to replace those with infrastructure money and money from the federal level. Water is the lifeblood of an economy. The same goes for forest management. Get the federal government to look after its forests. The state has a responsibility to look after its forests. We need to provide the grants and we need to manage our forests. And the local community has to have an economy so they can make decisions and do things that they know that's needed for their local area. But I can tell you there is funding available. There is $14 billion sitting at a state level for environmental use only for water. Let's go get it. That is our money, and I will be there fighting every inch for the rural communities in District 4.
Okay, how about Jim?
Great, thank you. First off, water is treasure, and obviously wildfire is one of our top issues here. And I think your question was at the intersection of basically the watershed. The forests are not only the trees, but it's also natural infrastructures, and where's the partnerships within that? I think this first approach that I would take is there are a lot of agencies from Aqua to the Mountain Counties Water Resource Agency, the Headwaters Working Group, CSAC, RCRC. There are groups that have been working to implement many of the ideas on the stage. We need leaders that come in that I think are open to building the coalitions and strange bedfellows that may be able to get this stuff done. Ironically, in this race, and I do agree there is a lot of funding available. There's Prop 1 money, there's Prop 4 money, there's federal money. The state has a key role in helping local jurisdictions, specifically rural jurisdictions, be ready to apply for grants that are federal, to have local matching funds. Often the smaller ones are challenged with that. We also have an opportunity to be able to reform some of the regulations on these irrigation districts that I think make it more challenging to expand capacity while the state's setting these very high local housing kind of standards there. But ultimately, of all the different ways we create bureaucracies and divide up the state, the one conversation that doesn't seem to be happening is often the more urbanized water users, the west side basically of California, and the mountain headwaters that are the infrastructure which supports them. An area of origin fee, or at least some type of collaboration, is an incredibly key way to make sure that, say in my county, where SFPUC owns Hetch Hetchy, we do not own our own senior water rights. We are maintaining the forest. We've done 300,000 acres of clearance that protects that. We know that these fires do huge damage to rivers. They can glass over the soil and create drainage and flooding issues. They should be at the table helping to fund stuff that is to their own benefit. So I think that's where the opportunity is. I'll close on, we have to do projects better in California. We can't just throw money at it. Prop 1's a perfect example. Sometimes it sits there and dies in process.
Okay, so insurance doesn't have a lot to do with forest management, but you might want to, I'll give you the opportunity to.
Yeah, I won't say, Paul, was it? And, again, my office is in the San Diego, Temecula area, way down south in the state. And we don't have any forests. So, even coming here and seeing this, this is beautiful. But a healthy forest is important, not just for fire and water, but also for the wildlife that are in these forests. And so what I would want to do at the state level is create a monthly reporting system. If this was, if I was going to do this, create a monthly reporting system that gives almost a letter grade for each of the forest areas so that we can examine and say, okay, what are the problems with the forest? We need to do monthly inspections. We need to see what the concerns are in each of the areas. So that's what I would do at the state level, along with some of the great things that the local and the federal constituents have said.
Okay, so I'm gonna close this up. It's 2:18. As a final, everybody will get 1 minute as a final comment. What we'd like to hear from you is, what is one commitment around these issues that you want voters to remember about you? What is one commitment you make that you want voters to remember? So we'll start at the other end. Gina.
Okay, I need a microphone. Yeah.
And you have 1 minute.
1 minute.
Yes.
Okay,
That's all we have
so
time.
I am fully committed to District 4, fully committed to finding solutions for our fire situation. I'm fully committed to my Fire Safe Council that I chair, the Firewise community that I chair, the Fire Safe Council that I'm part of. I have the experience. I understand the issues. I've been canceled 3 times. I know the pain, and I know I don't want to feel that. So again, I would make sure that we have the funding at the local level. I respectfully ask for your vote. For more information, www.posey4supervisor.com. Thank you again.
So once again, thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. If I'm elected supervisor, one commitment I can confidently make is I will doggedly pursue dollars for wildfire prevention and mitigation. I will make sure that OWOPR is funded completely, and I won't rest until we have all the money that we need to keep our community safe.
I spent my career working with big organizations, state and federal, putting together silos, groups that didn't work. We've been talking about fire management, we've been talking about insurance, we've been talking about creating safe zones. But when we've had a disaster, not only in El Dorado County, but in the state, you go to Paradise, you can go to Southern California, you can go to Grizzly Flats. Years later, they have 5% of the houses built. And those are problems from FEMA to insurance companies to local management. Within my first month, I would like to put together an emergency response council, taking someone from transportation, someone from planning, someone from all of the departments, so that if we have a problem, we have a disaster, there's one group within this government you can go to get those funds and help those people.
Again, my name is Jared Brandon, and I'm running to be your next state senator. This is 13 counties that are very similar to the 3,000 person town that I grew up in. You mentioned it, fire does not care about what party you are. There is a difference, though, in access to funding and being able to pass a piece of legislation. And one of the unfortunate things is a majority of legislation is largely passed by folks from very urbanized environments that don't understand these issues. I'm going to put that aside. I think that is just a thing in the race. That is nothing about the candidates, it's about who in the room. That is the state of California. We lack majority party access, and we have struggled with that. What I want to leave you with is that I bring the only professional experience as a local elected dealing with this in my own backyard and being successful and be reelected. Doing what I say that I'm going to do, and I have the lived experience, not as somebody who's rich, the right last name, but growing up in a trailer park, fixing up my own home, and having to be evacuated and see the fire. The closing thing, I will give everything to my top priority, which is wildfire, resilience, and fixing state insurance. That will be the committee I ask to spearhead, and I will not squander the opportunity with a new governor and new insurance commissioner to fix this.
Well, I'm Nina Parker, running for Assembly District 5, and my major commitment and the thing that has frustrated me more as a voter is access to your representative. We don't see town halls, we don't see consistent town halls, and so my commitment to you is at least once a month town hall, whether it's in person or online. My intention is to be accessible. You can't do this job if you don't know what's going on in the community. So my commitment to you is once a month town halls.
Keith Davis, running for insurance commissioner, and I'm very proud that I'm one of the only candidates that has actually seen firsthand the issues that we're having with fire. And my first order of business, which I put on social media and on my website, gokeithdavis.com, the first order of business for me is to fix this wildfire issue. You guys are doing extreme efforts to make sure your homes are safe, and you're not getting rewarded from it. In fact, it's almost like you're getting punished almost because the carriers are still leaving. And so the number one thing that I'm going to do when I get in there, the first order of business is to fix this. Is to fix the wildfire issue, is to make sure that if you're doing the work to protect your home, that you're being rewarded for it, to fix the California Fair Plan. We want to bring some of these carriers back, but we can't force them. And so if we're stuck with the California Fair Plan, why not just make it better? Why not have the proper oversight to say, hey, let's add additional coverage? Thank you.
I'm Alexander Dooley for State Senate, and my commitment is to the next generation. I'm having dinner with my son tonight, and the ranch who has taken over our farming in El Dorado County. And if we have forest management, that means we have less carbon in the air, we have less respiratory disease because of air quality, we have safer homes, we have cheaper insurance, we have more water, we have an economy in our rural communities. And that's what I want for Senate District 4. Thank you.
Heidi Hall, running for Congress and Congressional District 3, HeidiHall.com. I live in the WUI. I have a go bag at my door 9 months a year. I live these issues, and I'm the only candidate in this race who's been working on these issues for the last 5 years. I commit to sign on to the Fix the Forest Act. I commit to continue to work with the senators and congresspeople working on a backstop insurance pot for the insurance issues with wildfire. I commit to work with the counties because as a county supervisor, I know how that funding is coming in. I know where it goes. I know what works and what doesn't. I'll support our fire safe councils, support CAL FIRE, put money into fixing the issues with our federal forests, and make sure that they are aware that the rural and unincorporated issues need to be consulted with before writing bills that direct what happens in those areas. Thanks for having me.
Hello, Christine Bish, your candidate for Congress in California's 3rd Congressional District. What I will pledge, and I put it in writing, is that we have a federal framework that provides for local action. I understand what it's like to be in fire country and to maintain exit routes. During the King Fire, Caltrans and CAL FIRE were using our old logging trails to evacuate people out of Randolph Canyon. We have continued over the entire time that we've owned this property to maintain those exit routes. That we do as a responsibility to our community and to our neighbors. That's not something that we're funded to do. We have the right as individuals to live in peace in our home without the government telling us what to do. But the federal government has the job of creating the framework so we can live peacefully the way we want and provide action at the state and local level.
Once again, I'm Chris Bennett, running for Congress, California's 3rd District, BennettForCA.com. The big thing is I'm not a career politician, but I'm committed to trying to actually fix these problems. Not just slap a Band-Aid on them, not work with the people that got us in this mess in the first place, actually address the root cause and the systemic problems that have gotten us to where we are. That means we fix the localized and systemic problems. So full federal funding for our fire departments, including readiness efforts, federal jobs guarantee, including climate and wildfire readiness, because we need people need jobs, we can put them to work doing those things. Public flood and fire insurance paid for by the biggest polluters. Public and affordable housing development with investment in homelessness prevention programs so that people are safe. Making sure that we have single payer Medicare for all to protect our communities and firefighters who disproportionately die from cancer and often die in poverty because they just can't afford to deal with the problems of cancer. We prioritize military and public safety funding towards firefighters and fighting poverty because we should be using our resources to help Americans, not using them to hurt people, whether it's here or abroad. So once again, Chris Bennett, thanks for having me.
Thank you. My name is Ralph Nawalbi. I'm running for Congress for California Congressional District 7. And I am actually the only candidate here out of the 6 candidates that are running for the same position. So I showed up, and that's actually one of the things that I admire among firefighters. They always show up. So if elected as congressman, you best just reassure that I will always show up. You will always have access to me if you're a CD7 resident. I'll also fight, if elected, to help in taking care of our firefighters, their needs, even sometimes after some incidents, firefighters even deal with PTSD. All those things have to be looked into. I will fight for the increase across the board of their salaries, entry level $1,000 across the board, so $12,000 per annum for every entry level firefighter. I hope to do all this, and I also hope as a congressman to improve cooperation between state and local levels.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I want to acknowledge that running for office is really hard. So thank you all for all of the time you're putting into learning about the issues, the time to be here, everything you're doing on the campaign trail. I think it's easy to be kind of cynical about politics, but people running for office are real people trying really hard to do the things that they believe are best for our community. And so I just want to thank all of you for that. We really appreciate it. We appreciate that you were here today. I appreciate all of you in the audience, everybody asking the questions, being engaged in the process. And yeah, just want to give all of you, it's all.
Just this way. Jeff.
Here's like, that's my cell phone, and I'm driving everywhere.